I'm excited about this conversation that I'm going to have with our guest speaker, and we will have time for questions and answers at the end. Just turning off my phone. So recently I had the honor and the privilege of being on a Keller Williams Luxury Pro. They have a speaker series, and our guest Lysi was one of the ones on the speaker series, and I'm on these all the time. And I know, Mark, you're on them as well. And we've had many, many great speakers, but this one in particular, I mean, it just blew my mind. As Carolyn said, she was speechless. And I agree. I was just like, oh my God, this is just so good. It's incredible. And everything that I've learned from Lysi and the conversation was really remarkable. So fortunately, Lysi answered the phone when I reached out to her, and she was so gracious to kind of have the same conversation again with you all today. So I'm really excited, and please take tons of notes. This is going to be recorded. And like I said, at the end, we'll have, Q&A, and we'll open it up a little bit. So, today, we will be learning from truly one of the best in the business. We will delve into the art of scaling a luxury real estate business, going from solo agent to thriving enterprise. She literally runs a successful career building namesake brand with over 2 billion in sales. So it's my privilege to welcome Lysi Bishop, and please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your story.
Christine, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to your region for being interested in growing and learning from each other. That's been what I love about Keller Williams, and it's just a privilege to be able to be a part of it. My story is I started selling real estate as a young solo agent. I was probably 24 years old. Not probably, I was, because it's my 30-year anniversary. We now know how old I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I had a baby, a 1-year-old, and was starting real estate school, found out I was pregnant in real estate school. So I would literally, I tease and say I was barefoot and pregnant. I did have shoes, but I was young, pregnant, and the breadwinner for the family. My husband was still in school. So real estate to me was something that ran in the family, and I had a passion for it, and just dove in. And so I went from figuring out how to just make ends meet to get out of eating canned soup for all of our meals to finding how much.
On the guest list, please.
You got it?
Mariana, please mute yourself. There we go. Okay, there you go.
So went from that to becoming too busy to keep up with the clients and ending up really having to learn from a lot of pain in the growth process. So a lot of hiring failures, a lot of business success, never having an understanding of culture, and well, now having an understanding, to now having such a strong team. We have a team of approximately 50 team members. Doing luxury, we are mostly support team. And so we aren't quite at 50, it's probably 45, but using round numbers, I would say we have about 15 agents and about 35 success team members. Success team members are our support staff. And through that, we've been able to thrive and just become a household name in our area and do what we call luxury at all price points. Very high level service to keep those clients happy and keep the referrals coming.
Absolutely. And I love that phrase, luxury at all price points. I mean, it's just fabulous. So how did you know, did you always want to start a team, or did the team just grow because you were growing, you just needed to, and figured it out along the way? Walk us through that process a little bit.
Okay, super. So I have a high D personality. Likely everybody on the call has that high D personality. And the flaw in my high D personality is that my high C is just barely behind it. They're very close to one another. So my goal was just to get in business, to do a phenomenal job for the clients, and to support my family along the way. I had no goal, no idea of even planning a team. Remember, at that point, 30 years ago, the MREA book was not out yet. And the idea of going to a company like Keller Williams, they were young, they were growing, and I thought of them as like being a Tupperware salesperson, that you go to clients and you're trying to like build this pyramid because it was small. They were on the road
Right.
trying to, build it. So I was just stubborn and just tried to figure out how to do it myself. And I had no desire to have anything larger than me. So
Mm,
it just, as we went through the seasons and time of real estate growing, we in Idaho went through a pretty great run up during the dot-com boom. If anybody was in business in the late 90s, early 2000s, we went from the dot-com boom to real estate being the enterprise or the industry that saved the economy after that bubble burst. So we had this phenomenal run up from the early 2000s to 2006. And so during that time period, of course, a lot of people got into real estate. It was very easy. You just stuck a sign in the yard, and then we all know what happened next, the Great Recession. And really where I learned to grow this business was in a time, I think, much harder than where we are right now, but maybe a similar time. So I love the opportunity to have these calls because if people were not in business at that point, this whole Sitzer Burnett, a lot of the changes are really scary. And we make it through those scary times. It is tougher.
right.
We maybe have less units and we have growing pains, but when we really weather through those storms, like our businesses take off exponentially. So I feel like we're in another one of those times right now where my business really defined itself for where it is right now. In the Great Recession, I doubled down. I was working twice as hard, spending twice as much money, and serving the emotional needs of the clients at a higher level than we had to prior to that. Everybody was making
Right.
lots of money during that post.com, and then it just all stopped. So during that time period, we really had to figure out how to serve people. And it was me and an assistant or two. And that meant that I was working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like there was no time for food or sleep. So I was really forced into growing. And I was, at this time, I say fortunate enough, I was trying to avoid it at the time. There was a Keller Williams recruiter that was chasing me around and trying to tell me that I could do it better. And I was too stubborn. Everything had to be done by me. So it took a while to
Totally.
get my thick head.
Yep.
Then once I learned to grow, to serve the clients, to really kind of create a bigger life for all, not only our clients, our team members, or just for me and my family, I needed to grow and leverage. So that's where this all
Right.
began.
And when you say luxury at all price points, do you live in an area that's just luxury area and so you're just doing luxury, or did you start not in luxury and you now do luxury because of what you offer to everybody?
You named it on the second. I
Okay.
was recently asked to speak in Seattle for a conference that the Northwest region was putting on, and they had Brady Sandall. They had two of the KW communities leaders, Liz Landry and Brady Sandall, each running a portion of it. And so I was asked to be on the several of the luxury panels. And Brady can hardly help himself. He's in this gorgeous area, gorgeous, California, Palm Springs, and he's surrounded by luxury. And he will openly say, "Oh my gosh, Lysi, I mean, you live in Idaho, you've got brown bed foothills. What is there?" And our luxury is like $1 million. Of
Right.
course, we have some very few anomalies that are 3 million and over, very few, like a handful. And so we live in maybe the normal price point for most markets, and that's considered
Okay.
our luxury. So I did
Right.
start in luxury. I started just in the area closest to my home where I had a passion for it and grew it from there. And this service is what built all the luxury referrals.
That's amazing. Oh my God. So, since we're talking about service, along with that comes your standards, right? Your strategies. I know that you have a large team and you have all these standards in place. Can you walk us through that as well?
If I may, I'm going to start with a solo agent and how
Yes.
I grew it as a solo agent. Because
Great.
sometimes when they start with what we have right now, we're talking 35 success team members support. It's just overwhelming and people will just shut down and go, "That's not my world."
Right.
But what I really learned was trying to build it was me and one assistant, and it was me and two assistants. And the best advice that I can give people, the most powerful advice that people say that they walk away from was that for our success, we had to first document. I had to first understand my needs so that I could convey those needs well to the team member that was going to be doing that task. And so often, if we are building and we're busy, we're like, blah, 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 just follow me, like just copy me. You'll figure it out. And busy real estate salespeople have that personality. At least I did. And I am so detail oriented that I realized pretty quickly I had to have everything documented out. So I started back in the day, we didn't have all these electronic tools or AI or anything. I created basically a description of everything that we needed to do. So if I was hiring a TC before you had leverage for TCs or hiring an assistant, they had a job description that started with here's your beginning of the day. The beginning of the day, like what are our tasks? What do we need to do? Here's your end of day so you could carry it forward. But every task they had to do did have a standard for it. I say a standard because you can't possibly write everything down in that. But when you're able to write down your standards, interview the people, make sure that the standards meet their skill set and their passions, then they're able to really excel in that. So if, as I'm working with other agents across the country and they're saying, boy, I don't have that C, I just want to sell. I'm a high I, I'm a high D. Then your first hire would be somebody who can really document those systems and standards. And the way you can document that is just simply through recording. And so we end up having somebody will now follow me, interview me, and they're taking notes and they've just got an iPhone video on. If you have, whatever AI you have. So we use recording and I'm going to forget what it is. Otter is what we use to record our notes.
It's great. Right.
Versions of it, and they do a great job. Well, Otter just partnered with an AI company and they'll listen to what you're saying and then send you an AI report of exactly the key points of that summary. And it's amazing because they summarize your takeaways. So when you're in a meeting and you're just talking, and then you get this AI report, the report actually says, here are your actionables out of it. So figuring out if you're hiring somebody who is is going to take on that role, figuring out how to convey that information in a way that works best for you is key. Getting those roles defined, interviewing, making sure that the person is not just a high I who you love in the interview process, but they are somebody who can carry out those tasks, and then using that to leverage the next add-on.
Very interesting. Now, also, how do you, and I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but how do you find the people that you've hired and keep them and retain them? Is that a long process? Because finding the right people has been very difficult.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at that. So the biggest thing that I had to do was leverage that. I would hire high I's because I liked them. They interviewed so well and they would say that they were excited about it. And so it never worked. It just didn't.
Right.
And going through who I now put other people through it, but through KW, we have all those tools, our KP, of course, our discs, our KP, Recruit Select, and then really drilling down on all those items so that when you take more time, ask more questions through the interview process. I used to hire out of pain. We were growing so much, or we had such a need that it was better to have somebody there than no one.
Right.
And we paid dearly for that. We always had to rehire, and it was always more painful in the long run, even though it seemed like the better solution to just Band-Aid it. That was probably one of our biggest mistakes.
Right.
Now that we have what we're looking for defined, before we even go into that interview, asking the right questions, making sure it hits the passion for that interviewee, then we're able to move forward. Right now, it's our labor market. We have a shortage in Boise. I figure most areas have the same. And so when our pool, so if we open up a job on Indeed and we don't get good candidates for it, we close it and we reopen it a week later. And you have a whole different, or however many days later, a whole different candidate pool, but we no longer hire out of pain. We'd rather double down and get the job done, like just barely gimping by until we can find the right person.
Right. No, that makes sense. And then also, how did you set up your organizational chart? I know in the call that I heard you on, you also hired a coach to help you. How did you find that coach? And then how did you grow to the 9 departments?
So when we talk about being a solo agent, we want to grow, finding that first or second hire that meets your needs is, I think, more important than anything. Whether that
Right.
means that your strengths are different than mine, getting that person, then that's going to free you up to be able to have a little bit of white space, a little bit of time to think about the rest. For me, I relied on my team leader in our Boise office to help me find my first coach. And through that coaching, I outgrew probably 3 or 4 coaches along the way, but every single one of them was so valuable for me to hold up the mirror and guide me to what I needed to do. Because I would always say to them, yeah, I get it. That works for everybody else. But in my world, that won't work. And so having somebody who really, I always call it, held up the mirror and forced me to acknowledge it, even though I didn't like it. If you like your coach too much, they may not be the right fit.
That's interesting.
I felt it was a little bit painful with each of my coaches to get pushed through everything. And then I went a
Right.
year or two probably without coaching because I'd outgrown my last and didn't end up having a coach. And then what I needed at that stage to go from being a small company to really growing, I reached out to some other mega agents who had big teams and just asked them who their coaches
Right.
were
Yep.
and had great referrals. But I couldn't have grown the teams and recognized the needs without somebody to hold me accountable. And in the beginning, I didn't really want to, it just seems like a waste of money and a waste of time to,
Right.
it did to me anyway, to have that. I sort of thought I knew more than they did because my production was so much higher. And
Right.
somebody once had to say, do you think Tiger Woods coaches are better golfers than he is?
Ah, that's so interesting. It's so true, though. It's so
Yeah,
true.
coaches can
Yeah.
see, they're specialists in certain areas and they can see things that you need before you can see it. So that's
Right.
been really critical to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you mentioned that you have 9 departments. Can you walk us through those 9 departments? And then I'm also going to really want to delve in a little bit more about the listing department because that department is incredible.
So we're a listing-based business. That's what makes the phones ring. That's what brings in all the business. So the listing department is, they are very heavy lifters. Now, while we have all these departments, I didn't start with all these departments.
Right.
One individual covered 5 different tasks or 5 different departments' responsibilities. But knowing what we needed and having those systems and standards and clarity mapped out for us, we were able to grow a little bit at a time and then bring them forward. So I have to look at my cheat sheet, and on my cheat sheet, I will tell you what our departments are now. Uh,
Perfect.
right now, we have 9 separate departments, and then the founders. Founders, I include my husband in, myself and my husband. Sales agents are 15 agents. We
Okay.
have 2 ISAs, and neither one of them live here. Both are outsourced. They happen to
Mm,
have actually lived here, worked for us, and then when they moved, we created the jobs for them. So those ISAs will go ahead and feed the leads back through, they'll nurture them and feed them back to the agents. We have a client services department. That's sort of what Keller Williams calls the director of first impressions. So somebody
okay.
answering the phones and the first person the client meets. And because we started with one person to answer the phone, schedule appointments, as it got busier, we made sure we're open 7 days a week. So we needed 4 people to just man those shifts all the
Right.
way through. Our listing department includes 4 listing managers. And what the most important role is having basically a concierge or somebody who is a project manager responsible for doing all the work that you promise the seller that you're going to do on the listing. And
Mm,
that started out as just my EA. My EA's job was essentially, I mean, she did everything, but that was what she did at first. And as we grew and needed to leverage, when we offer luxury at all price points and we tell somebody we're going to do something, we have to do it. And we have to
mm,
do it before they ask us to do it. Growing into a luxury business and or a big business is, in my opinion, all about the client service, the customer experience. And as an agent, as we grow, we can't always be the one calling them to meet their needs whenever they need anything, but somebody has to. Otherwise,
right.
they all know 10 agents. They all have fears of their own goals they want to meet. And if they don't have communication from us, these issues, these teeny issues become much larger items. So as I was too busy to be by my phone all day long, I hired somebody who was now it's grown, but who was that right-hand person, my new best friend, or a project manager for each of my sellers as a listing-based business. Now, what do they do now is everything is mapped out and scheduled. They make 2 outgoing calls a week to every seller, and I or my listing agents make 1 outgoing call each week. And when markets slow down and people need communication, having all that set makes it super easy. They're very short calls at this point. But as agents, we all know when we have an upset client, those calls solving their problems, they're an hour and a half long, and they're
Right.
negative, and they're drama, they're heavy, and it's tough. So one of the best things that I have found is getting ahead of everything. You'll hear me when I'm speaking at things talking about future pacing. My goal in everything I do is to let the client know what their experience will be like, what to expect along the way, and then to perform or provide that experience before they ever have to ask for it. And when we get too busy, we can't do that. And we think, oh, no one else can do that. They just want me. At least I thought. And so what my first coach helped me understand is they don't need you for that, Lysi. They need you to negotiate the offers. They need you on price changes. They need to know you're there. They just need somebody who's really incredible at client care, taking care of them and checking in. So in a luxury-based business or a listing-based business that things aren't just flying off the shelves, having that person communicate. My lights went off in my room. Oops. Oh, well, hopefully you can see me. We have a new office space and everything is smart lighting and I'm not moving enough for it.
You look great. You're good.
Pardon me. So as we had to figure out ways to do that, creating those systems for the listing manager makes it so the clients are happy. That person, when we're going to go ahead and take on a listing, what we do is if we take a listing that needs help, is something as simple as carpet cleaning, window washing. We do all that for the client. We coordinate it all. So having that project manager, again, it all falls under the listing manager role, be the upfront person for them, makes it so they feel like they have concierge service.
Wow.
After signing that listing, they jump in right away. We tell them that they'll be calling. They make that first call. Then they go over in their introduction call what they're going to be helping with. And we've already prepared them for, hey, after my listing appointment, here's what I promised. They go ahead, make the call with them, and then they schedule everything we promised. By being in really early, that person develops a relationship, that project manager starts a relationship with the client, and the client knows to call them for administrative tasks. And I'm able to tell them that my job is the sales. And I don't want to fail you because when I'm in a client appointment, my phone goes to voicemail and I might be in there for an hour and a half. So I want to make sure that you have this amazing project manager by your side to guide you through. By doing that and setting those expectations up front and then making sure that they're staying in close contact, those clients don't need me as much. And we're salespeople. We don't need to be window washer schedulers, flyer fillers, any of that. It kind of frees us up to do what we do best.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God, it's so good, Lysi, it's so good. Okay, and I've been taking notes. So you said before in during the speaker series, if a client has to call me to ask a question, I realize I had failed them. I mean, oh my God, that in itself is brilliant, but it sounds like that never happens because they're so well taken care of, right?
Yeah, it will still happen. They're all human, so it will still happen. But
right.
When you think about you promised a client you would do something, or and you meant to do it, and they have to call you,
right?
Smokes, that's terrible. So
terrible.
Our goal is to always avoid that. We're not 100%. So sometimes we will miss something in a call to them and we still have that experience. And so I remind the team that if they have to do that, we all feel a pit in our stomach, like, ooh, we missed it. And it trains us every day to do better so that we're like, ooh, if I don't make up this 2-minute call right now to let the client know, they're going to call me. And then instead of being ahead of the game, the client feels like they have to manage us and remind us what to do. And the whole relationship.
Hey, go, Mike.
Right,
everything.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. Stuart, please mute. I'll mute you right there. And then also on these calls, what if there's nothing new to say? Like nothing new has changed? How do you yeah, you have a scheduled call, but you're just calling like with no news.
You still have to do it. So and I do tell them that. Again, if we're future pacing our clients and we're setting expectations, we say, especially if it's a high-end listing or the market is slowed down, like I use the term buckle your seatbelt. I'll say, you know what? The
Right.
market is taking a little bit longer. Instead of being in a 0 to 60-day market, your market, you have micro market. So your micro market is taking 6 months to 9 months to sell. I don't know what kind of markets everybody's in. And so you might get tired of me in this process. What my goal is to always be able to check in with you every week to be able to make sure that you're being taken care of and that if any questions that you have are answered. So I'd like to get your permission, set this up to be able to have your listing manager check in twice a week. You might just be out of flyers. You might need a window washer. And I'd like to give you market updates once a week. And so when they are expecting those calls, and I do tell them, some weeks we don't have anything to talk about, so it's just checking in to make sure you're okay. Does that work for you?
Right.
Nobody turns me down, or if they are a high level executive that doesn't want them, they will tell me, Lysi, that's too much. Can we make it once a week? And we adjust at that point. But I ask permission first. And then from there, what we do is every time we make a call, we pull up our MLS with our saved search of that property so we know exactly what's happening with those comps. And then we go ahead and we pull up their showing log so we know exactly what's going on with their showing log. Like everybody else, we're watching our markets like a hawk. So we know when new listings hit the market that are in competition, and we're calling for feedback. So those calls give us the opportunity to update our sellers on feedback. And that way they don't have to get an update 5 times a day or have them calling going, I never hear from you guys on feedback.
Right.
And it lets us tell them what's happening with their competition. If there's nothing interesting in their competition, I want to talk about what's going on. We all get, whether it's Inman news, whether it's news from your lender, whether it's Federal Reserve news, we all get news. And so I want to be able to just give them some update about the market that gives them, something tangible and interesting that they want to ask about. Says, the Federal Reserve is scheduled to meet next week. They're talking about lowering interest rates. Then we hear them say higher for longer. I'm not sure that anything will come out of it, but I do have lots of conversations with people around it. And we are feeling like if there is a reduction in interest rates, we'll see a pickup. Let's see how this goes this week. Then it gives me something to call them about next week. So
that's great.
Talking about the market. And then when I have absolutely nothing to say, I'm able to say there just hasn't been anything going on. It was 4th of July week. As we spoke before, no activity really happens. I hope you and your family enjoyed your festivities. Is there anything that we can do to be assisting you at this time? Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll check in with you next week.
It's so good. It's so good. I actually used one of your phrases. I have a client whose house isn't selling and he thought it would sell in a weekend. And so I said, buckle up. We're going to stay as partners together for a long time. And I'm here, to guide you through and be your partner. And it seemed to work. So I thank you for those.
We'll do it together. People want to know
Yes.
want to know we're in it together. So I love it.
Exactly. And I did tell him that I would be checking up with him weekly. So thank you for all those notes. You also said in that last call that you had your best hire. You now have a director of operations. Was she in the real estate world, outside of the real estate world? And how in the world did you find her?
So I am very good at sales. I love sales. I love organizing. That's my strength. And so I kept sales as my priority. I have a huge fire in my belly to perform. I was able to perform for the clients and go. But we can't be good at everything. And my strength, definitely not my people. So being hard driven, I was too hard on everybody. I had such high expectations and I don't need warm and fuzzies. I just don't. I don't really even respond to that. I need someone to tell me what's wrong and be really direct and I can fix it and move on. So having that weakness, most people are not like that. High Ds are that way, but most people need things in a love sandwich. They need a better approach to things. So I really struggled with my people, the culture inside of the company. So as I talk to people on this call and I say, hey, if you are not a high C, hire someone who is a high C so that you can get your systems and your standards all documented. And then you can that gives you something to hold everybody accountable to. What I needed help being held accountable to is building a culture and a wonderful environment where people wanted to work and that they got their kudos, their rewards, and their this is not the right word because I mean it in the most positive way, but they needed their rah-rahs, and I'm
Right.
not a rah-rah. And I didn't think anyone needed that. It seemed like such a waste of time. So for me, making sure I found the right hire who understood culture and then could take over the team job. I'm very good with the clients, and I moved too fast for the team and have really, really high expectations. So she was able to soften that. So we hired my husband was doing it in the beginning, and we replaced him with a director of operations, and he moved up to mostly doing all the financial models, working at a higher level, supporting her through it. And then we eventually moved her into the CEO position and replaced her with another director of operations. What we benefited from that is I no longer do the hiring. I'm not hiring the high eyes or going to the KW classes to learn how to do it. I'm relying on them to do it because that's their strength. That way I could focus on the sales, the conversions, the client experience, being able to have somebody help me implement that with the team in a softer approach,
Right.
and somebody who could build culture. Make sure that when we hired people and we had these expectations, we were checking in with them on weekly touch bases to make sure that the team member, the staff members were getting what they needed so that we could have less turnover. We had a lot of turnover in the early years. People need a lot of love and a lot of kudos. Yay,
Right.
they need it. And I didn't understand that because of my personality. So she had that strength. So it's sort of
Right.
like a yin and a yang. I filled that strength with it, and she's incredible at that. So finding that right person is key. Now, you would think a director of operations, she needs to know real estate. When I'm on client appointments and somebody calls in mad because something didn't happen, she has to solve that as well, but she's not licensed. I learned very quickly, we don't need to be licensed for that. That role is probably better with somebody who's not licensed. You can license them if it feels important to you, but their strength zone should be in building and making sure that they know how to build the administrative work behind the agent. And so even if it's just you and one person, having that person who's a builder will allow you to move forward and have them take care of things in the end. So she's now taught me to, well, she runs all of our meetings and she does all the all of the team member celebrations. So now their anniversaries are celebrated. We don't miss their review dates. She's able to very quickly help them pivot if they aren't meeting the standards. And so to me, that for my world was the most important hire because that is not my strength.
Right. Right. Oh my God, it's just brilliant. All right. And what strategies do you or she use to keep the team members motivated? We're all going through kind of a transitional, time right now, and to have them perform at your level.
So what I realized is, and through this person's strengths who are different than mine, is this is a work family. These
Right.
team members spend most of their day with us. So the only thing that they do for as many hours is sleep. Well, hopefully they're sleeping, but they're and so she was able to create a really positive environment for them. So everything that I just spoke about on each of those items is key. And then also culturally, once a week, we meet as an entire team. So
Great.
salespeople and success team gets together every week, once a week. In our case, it's Thursday mornings, and we review a lot of culture items. I mean, she comes in with celebrating wins. I had no idea this was important. So we started the meeting with, a round table and everybody's celebrating wins so that their mindset is shifted into a really positive space.
Right.
Then having those touch bases with everybody, making sure those weekly touch bases take place when somebody's in pain, whether it's just that they're not sleeping, they're not succeeding at their job, they have problems in their family life, whatever it is, she's able to help them pivot quickly to be able to find more success. So I think if you aren't naturally, Caroline and I were talking about that on our call, she's naturally so positive. She brings that in. I'm naturally a driver. I'm going to just go. Having
Right.
somebody who can create that. And I would say our whole culture, our weekly meetings and our overall culture has created a family environment where now we can easily discuss things like Sitz or Burnett. How are we going to pivot? And people lean in and they come from a place of like, this is a safe place to be able to bring our fears, our strength zone. Like people are afraid we aren't going to be making commission anymore. How do we have these conversations? So it's such a strong environment where people can lean in and, sometimes we say embarrassing things that, we're failing at this. This isn't working. And creating that environment where they are in a space that they can be heard and in a space where they can grow. They can like fail forward openly and learn from each other's failures. So that's
Right. And during your journey, what were some of your biggest failures that, not that I'm sure you had many, but that you learned from and you grew from?
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to decide which ones to pick. I think that one of the strongest things for me was giving myself a 2-minute pity party and nothing more. So when I
Mm,
fail, I don't let it bring me down. I give myself, a 2-minute pity party. I may not even need that, but I feel it. And I want to recognize what I could have done better so that I can
right.
take that as a positive experience to move forward. So when when I'm trying to even convert a client, I take as a win if they tell me no. If I'm going out on a listing appointment, having to chase them and follow up. I mean, think about it. It loses that they go and list with someone else and don't communicate with you. So
Right.
for me, my wins are I have to teach myself a positive way to get through a failure. And in simple terms, I don't get the listing. That feels like a failure. Well, hey, guess what I learned and what I can do next time. Now, if I
Right.
expand upon that in everything in the business, I would say my lack of understanding on how to lead people, that means staff members, was where I learned the most. And I think my biggest failure was thinking that I had to do everything. I
Mm,
refer back to all of our Keller Williams teachings. It was my limiting belief that nobody could do it better than me, and it had to be.
right.
And so I micromanaged everything. Like I
Mm,
can't imagine how terrible it would have been to work for me in those days. But I really did micromanage and didn't give people space to trust them and allow them to grow. So if I was going to summarize it and say what I have learned the most about is hiring where I needed help on growing people, knowing that I'm not the best person for that, hiring a person or people who can lead better than I can. Then, as we bring in new people or even our key person, making sure that we have our standards set. If we can build the systems for them, build the systems for them, or hire people who can build systems. But I didn't give people the space to fail on their own.
mm,
Um, I didn't give them the space to like grow. I had to micromanage it. And the stress level it caused me when they created problems for the clients was just too great for me, for me to
right.
handle. I wanted to jump in and save it. So learning to first set them up for success, have those regular touch bases so that they know what they aren't having success on, and then allowing them the space to build that or succeed in that. And I realized it was trust. I had
Right.
to trust them.
Right.
If I micromanaged, what I was saying is, I don't trust you. You can't do
Right.
as good as me. Only I can do this. So don't proceed until you have my permission. That's what we're saying when we are micromanaging or taking over. And I had to have a lot of help with coaching on that because it's easier said than done to be
Right.
able to give the space for talented people to lead. I still have to work on that every day. That's still something I work on daily with my coach. So that's
Right.
probably the biggest failure and learning opportunity, just because real estate sales, marketing, all of that came easily for me. And
Mm,
everybody's strengths will be different.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, what advice would you give solo agents if they want to start to build the team, knowing that it takes time and coaching and strategies and standards? What would be their, first or second steps to do so?
So what I hear now that we have this MREA book and we have really smart young people coming in the business who want to be a mega agent like that, they want to, just
Right.
go all the way through it. I've seen some of them do it so fast, my head is spinning, but I've seen most of them want to be big, be a luxury agent, and they have a want to do it, but maybe not a passion for the client. Maybe they haven't built
Mm,
a strong platform to be able to know how to succeed for that client, to be able to get the referrals. When we are not taking care of the client, we are a little bit of a churn and burn business. We burn out that referral source. And Gary speaks about it all the time. I mean, that We are a lead gen business, and people do business with who they like and know and trust. So
Right.
if we're able to get in and do what we do best, then leverage out the one thing, just one thing at a time that we are not in a strength of. I recommend that that be administrative tasks. I recommend
Mm,
that it not be leveraging the sales tasks early, so that once you get so busy, the admin is supporting you so that you can take on more sales responsibilities, more conversions, more buyers, more sellers. That's the leverage. Then once you're at absolute maximum capacity, for me, it was leveraging a buyer specialist. Back in my day, I actually had like a showing specialist. Then I converted
mm-hmm.
to buyer's agents, and then several buyer's agents, while I maintained my focus on building the brand, the business, serving those seller clients, bringing in those listings that made the phone ring, serving them at the highest level. Then the very last thing I did was leverage listing agents. So much so that in October, I stopped taking listings and my
Right.
as me as a listing agent. Now my listing agents take all the listings. I still support them. I'll help them convert. I'm involved in so much of the business, but now I have buyer's agents handling all our buyer clients and listing agents handling all of our listing clients with my support.
That's fabulous. And I know that since you are no longer selling, but people still call your office, but they know to say, hello, I'm calling to talk to one of Lysi Bishop's agents, which is just brilliant. So they know that they're going to get the culture and the standards of Lysi Bishop, but they're not getting Lysi Bishop, right?
That was really hard. That was one of the hardest things that I did. I wouldn't even necessarily say fail forward, but that was hard to do.
Right.
Everybody only wanted me. That was it. It was, okay, we're calling for Lysi. Oh, we don't get
Right.
Lysi. Well, never mind. Click. And so we have something that we do very effectively, which is called an open house tour every weekend. We have a minimum of 6 open houses. When I say every weekend, it's more like 44 weekends a year. And the buyer specialists and listing specialists are in those homes. And so that helped introduce the community to somebody other than me. And they're able to say, I'm a
Mm,
specialist on the Lysi Bishop team. So that was a huge help. Now, every agent has, well, most agents will have listings or something. And so if you are starting with that and you're trusting your team members to be your leverage there, that was a key step. Then as I leveraged each item, I used to do all the conversions. So when one of my longtime clients came in, I would say, I'm so excited to work with you. Things have changed a little bit. I run the team and have the most amazing partner. My buyer specialist, whatever their name may be, Alan, will be boots on the ground and in all of, opening all the doors for you. You're going to love him. And I'm still here for you. So it's like getting 2 for the price of 1. Alan's more available. And as a buyer, you need somebody available to get in right now. I promise you're going to love him. And if for any reason you don't, please let me know, because I am here for you. Same thing on listing side. And so through that and through many years of doing that, it wasn't an overnight thing. Now people say, even my clients say, call Lysi Bishop and any of her agents are going to take the best care of you. I love it because I have one of a very large developer. This is just a fun story, who has been around for 30 years. And I got a call from him the other day and he said, Lysi, you're my real estate team. Anything I need, people have when you're high end, you have your accountants, you have your real estate, you have your team, your people.
right.
And he calls me whenever he has a client or a family member who has a need. And he doesn't ever get me on the properties. In fact, every single one, just in his case, has been a different agent. I don't know why. I've always said, tell me a little bit about who they are. What do you need? And I've paired him with different people. So when he needed to do a 1031 and buy 3 properties, he was selling commercial building pad, which I don't do, called me to say, hey, that's sold. I need to buy 3 residential properties. Here's what I want to do. Listen to what he needs. Wonderful. So-and-so will be your best friend through this process. And he loves it. I get thank you notes from it.
Oh my God, it's so amazing. And I can't let you go without saying you have a buyer's specialist at the open houses with a listing specialist?
Sometimes, depending on what we need.
Okay.
We have either a buyer
Okay.
specialist or a listing specialist, and
Oh,
sometimes we
that's
have
so
both.
great.
On bigger houses, we need more than one person. Our open houses are very busy.
Absolutely.
And so when we need more than one person, we try to pair buyer and listing, or if we can't, we have hostesses that we pair just to have the coverage.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's great. This has been incredible. Before I let you go, and we're going to do some Q&A as well. So you're no longer working in the business per se. You're not taking listings anymore. Please tell us your why and a little bit about your story as to why you're still doing your business and having such a thriving, successful enterprise.
My why is I actually love real estate. I love working. And so that is something that it wasn't that I was going to get in and get out, build a team. I love it. And being able to be in real estate at some capacity for the rest of my life is a goal for me. It's really fun. I think it's phenomenal. However, as I get older, there's obviously I'm not going to be walking in a walker to get into somebody's living room to list their home. So being able to leverage to have people who can carry on the namesake, people who can carry on the client service, and our brand is just been really rewarding. For me, I had a family member who had a medical emergency, and while we were building the team for it, I had to leave for a month or two. And it was really great for that to happen for the business because I learned they did okay without me. Having that micromanagement personality, I was still micromanaging too much. And when I was forced to do that and saw what they could do, and the clients complimented me as I came home for all that the team did for them, it was really great. That helped me really start to grow and leverage even more. Then my two beautiful children are both married. One of them has two grandbabies with a third on the way. And,
Oh,
having,
congratulations.
having a family and feeling, I can't work those hours anymore. I really can't do 20-hour days and be there for my husband, be there for the grandkids. And so figuring out a way that I could still have my passions in real estate, still be there to work and thrive in it, but no longer be the one who's negotiating the offers at all hours, who's in people's living rooms at all hours, has been really a wonderful next generation. So after 30 years, and it can be at any stage, it can be after 5 years or however many, it's been really rewarding for me to have a place and handle things at a really high level, just a different level.
Right. Oh my God. Well, we thank you so very much, but we're not going to let you go just yet. Please, anybody who has a question, either raise your hand or take yourself off mute. We've got about 10 more minutes of Lysi, so please take advantage. Let me open this up a little bit. Silva.
Fine.
Silva, you're muted, hon.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation and sharing all these secrets of yours with us.
Thank you.
I just have a quick, you're welcome. I have a quick question. When you have window cleaning for
Yes.
to present,
Any preparation work to go on market, yes.
who pays for it?
My clients pay for everything. So
Okay.
when I pay for, and we stage almost everything, we don't pay for it. So I tell people when I'm going on that listing presentation is that I cover all the costs for you. The only items that you take care of are maintenance of your home, of course, and furniture. So in the event that we decide not to use your furniture, that bringing another furniture would give it a more youthful vibe that will bring you a higher dollar, that would also be your expense. But other than that,
great.
we cover everything.
Thank you.
So you can hear how that's presented. I don't say, I don't pay for your window covering. I don't pay for your staging. I answer that we pay for everything with these exceptions, of course, which are yours.